Welcome, everybody. It's nice to have you here. And today we're going to do a kind of slightly a deep dive, I guess, and at the same time an overview of the basics of how to be happy, how to live a successful life, how to solve your problems. Because it occurs to me that that's valuable information that we could all benefit from. And a lot of the time we have a tendency to overcomplicate things in our lives. And if we have an overcomplication, then we forget in moments of stress, in particular, we forget what it is that we should be doing in order to help ourselves. So I want to simplify that so that you have what you need in order to be successful in your life. And so you want to have the right information and keep it simple so that you can have success. So to start, I'm going to offer a brief guided practice that will help all of us to connect to our source, our true self, as it were, because this is the foundation of everything. And so, if we're talking about simplicity, this is as simple as it gets, and we really create an experience from this simplicity. And if we're not making that connection consciously, then we make things a lot harder on ourselves than it needs to be. So I invite you, if you're comfortable and if it is safe for you to do so, and obviously only if it's safe for you to do so. So if you're driving, then what I'm about to invite you to do would not be safe. But if you are in a situation and an environment where you could safely close your eyes, I invite you to close your eyes and just be comfortable. Okay, so if your mind says, gee whiz, how can I be comfortable? I'm always uncomfortable. Then just invite yourself to let go and just be comfortable, at least be more comfortable, at least allow yourself that much. Because if you're not allowing yourself to let go and be somewhat comfortable, then it makes it unnecessarily difficult for you to just connect with yourself as you really are. And the purpose of the invitation to close the eyes is so that you can reduce all of the visual stimulation, because all of that visual stimulation tends to produce a lot of activation in the brain, and our attention is all over the place. So closing the eyes just dampens that down and allows for a little bit more quietness. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. So there's no great mystery there. It's just about reducing that noise. So just feel into your experience and notice where there is anything that you could let go of. So physically, would you let go somewhere, maybe in your gut, maybe in your shoulders, maybe in your hands, maybe in your jaw, maybe in your forehead, maybe in your eyes? Wherever you can find anything that could just be let go of, not gotten rid of. Don't fight or struggle, just release, just surrender, just allow for a moment. It's not about forever, it's just about right now, just allowing, letting go, releasing right now to whatever degree is possible. So don't worry if there's something that you don't seem to be able to let go of. That's fine. Just let go of whatever can be let go of. And mentally, same thing, just let go of whatever can be let go of. Don't fight with anything. Don't tell yourself that you should let go. Just invite yourself to let go of whatever can be let go of, so that you can open up to that space that's already here. It's the backdrop of all experience. So that's why I say it's not essential that you let go completely and entirely of everything, because the holding on is not inherently problematic. It's just that it creates some unnecessary noise and distraction that can make it a little bit more difficult to notice the backdrop. So the invitation is just to let go so that there can be more ease in noticing the backdrop, the space that's already here. So all we're doing is just reducing the noise, just letting go of whatever can be let go of, letting things quiet down, letting things settle down, and just continue to be aware in this way. So just gently inviting yourself to continue to notice whatever can be let go of, and don't make a big deal of it. Don't stress about it. Don't make a big drama of it. Oh no, I'll never be able to let go enough. It's not that kind of thing. It's just a simple, gentle awareness and an ongoing open invitation to let go of whatever can be let go of and to not worry about anything else. So whatever tension remains, whatever impulses you don't seem to be able to let go of, that's okay. It's no problem. But perhaps now you can start to notice that there is what I'm calling this backdrop of experience, this silent, still, spacious openness that's here. So it's not something that's created. You're not generating it. Doesn't require anything. It's completely unconditional. It's always here. And we're just noticing it. So just see if you can start to notice that. Just notice that it exists already and that everything is coming and going in it. So if there's tension, the tension exists in this space. If there are thoughts, the thoughts exist in this space. All sensations exist in this space. All images, mental imagery appears and disappears in this space. Everything is here in this space. And it's not something you need to get hold of. It's not something you need to remember or anything. Just notice it. That's all. And it's just a simple noticing. So you really can't fail at this. Just play along. So the amazing thing is that we overlook this, but it's the only thing that's here continuously. It's always, 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 always here. Everything else is coming and going, changing. So the thoughts change, the feelings change, the sensations change, the mental imagery changes. All that stuff is coming and going. So there's no steadiness there, but there's an absolute continuity and steadiness of the backdrop of experience, this spacious awareness, this openness that's always here. And the amazing thing, if you'll just allow yourself to tell the truth about it, is that this has to be who you are. Has to be. Because you are always here. If you weren't here, then you wouldn't have self-awareness because you would be coming and going. You would be appearing and disappearing. But you don't appear and disappear. You're the essential essence that is continuously present. So you are this spacious openness, awareness, presence, aliveness, the backdrop of all experience. So in a moment, not yet, but in a moment, I will invite you to explore opening the eyes. But before we do that, I want to just point out a few things for you to notice. So notice that all experience is occurring in this backdrop. All experience is occurring in this spaciousness. So all sensation, all thought, all feeling, all emotion, all mental imagery, all of it is happening in this spaciousness that you are. And even though the eyes are closed, we haven't really done anything fundamentally to change or alter our experience of the other sensations or other senses. So the hearing that is occurring is the same hearing that occurs when we are perceiving more outwardly. But I'd like you to notice right now that the hearing is taking place actually in this space. So can you find a location for this hearing? The mind might have a story about it that says that the hearing is taking place somewhere else, or at least that the sound is arriving from somewhere else. But if you pay close attention and you just tell the truth about it, you may notice that the hearing, which is not separate from the sound, is actually happening here in this space. It's not at a distance, it's absolutely intimate. It's happening right here in you, in the space that you are. And then you can also notice that all of the feeling is also taking place here in this space that you are. So notice that all the sensations, which your mind might have stories about, are actually happening in this space that is here now that you are. So it's absolutely intimate and not at a distance at all. So just notice that. So again, the mind might tell a story that says that there's a particular sensation that means the surface that you are supported by. So if you're sitting on a chair, for example, then the mind might say that that sensation means the chair that you're sitting on, but and then your mind might say that the chair is separate from you, the chair is underneath you. But if you just notice and tell the truth about what's actually happening in direct experience, you'll notice that what's actually happening is that there is this experience of sensing that is happening that is here now, intimately one with you, one with the space in which it is occurring, and it's not happening at a distance at all. So there's just a mental overlay that projects a chair or whatever it might be. But in reality, the actual experience is intimately here and now, not at a distance, and it's happening in the space that you are. So just notice that everything that's happening is happening intimately here now in this space that you are. It's not at a distance. None of it is separate from you. It's all here in this space that you are. And so, and again, I'm pointing out that all of this is actually happening. It's the same sensing that takes place when we are imagining that we're perceiving an exterior reality, but it's possible to notice that it's actually all happening intimately here in the space that I am. So when you feel comfortable and ready to transition to an open-eyed state, please do so slowly and do so that you can be aware that all of that visual data, all that visual stimuli is occurring not separate from you, not at a distance, but intimately one with you in this space that you are. So just see if you can be aware of that as you slowly open the eyes when you're ready. There's no hurry to do that, but just when you're ready. So as I said, today uh, I'm, I'd like to explore some of the basics of how to live a successful life, how to be happy, and the basis of that is to know yourself. Because if you don't know yourself in the way that I've invited you to explore, then there remains an underlying anxiety all the time. So we're fundamentally, we could say, okay, so there's a singularity, there's only oneness. Hopefully that's clear to you based on the experience that has just that you've just been guided through. So There's a singularity. All of this is happening in that singularity as a singularity. There's only oneness. There's not anything else. So there's only this space. There's only this awareness. There's only this consciousness. There's only you. And then out of that, in that, as that, of that, there arises all of the phenomenal reality. It's not the phenomena is not separate from the space. So there's sound and there's silence. There's motion and there's stillness. There's form and there's formlessness. And uh, at a mental level, we make a distinction. We say that they're separate. But at the direct experiential level, hopefully what you were able to notice or catch a glimpse of is that they're not actually separate, that there's only one happening. It's only the thought that projects that there's a separation. But in reality, even that thought is happening within as the same space. So that's the foundation, is that recognition. Now, with that said, there is the appearance of a duality, right? And I liken this to a coin that has two sides. All coins have two sides. It's impossible to have a one-sided coin. Or if you can produce a one-sided coin, please demonstrate it to me. As far as I'm aware, it's not a possibility. As far as I'm aware, all coins have two sides. So it is a coin constructed of two sides? Do you take two separate sides and then put them together and you the result is a coin? No, obviously not. It's just that the singularity of the coin is such that its nature has two sides. So we could say that the two are really, it's sort of illusory. There's not really two, but it appears that there are two. So it's the same kind of thing that's happening here. So there's only one, but there's the appearance of two. And so um, we can talk about two because there's the appearance of two. And so I'll talk about those two. So the two are, there's the sense of a formless, silent, spacious awareness that is free of content. And then there's the sense or appearance of the content, which is form, movement, sound, etc. And so these are the two sides, the unmanifest and the manifest. And so now most people are conditioned to only perceive themselves and only perceive the manifest. So they're not aware of the unmanifest. They don't give any attention to the unmanifest. It's not on their radar at all. They're functioning only at the level of the manifest. So they're functioning at a level of separation. They're functioning as a sense of being a separate individual. And I propose to you that is a weak position that will give limited results, that produces frustration, anxiety, and that kind of thing. And so that's why I started the meeting with this exploration, this direct exploration, to be able to give a direct experience of the formless so that everybody can have some glimpse of that, so that that can be a foundation that we can all have, that we can all reference, so that this will make sense, because that's a position of power. And we want to live our lives with power, not with powerlessness. So we could say that the formless, the unmanifest, is the ultimate source of all power. It's potential energy. And then the manifest is that energy in actualized. Okay, so there's potential energy, and then that energy is actualized into form, into sound, into the manifest. So it arises from its potential, from the formless. So the formless is the source, but then it expresses in the manifest. So obviously, if you're living exclusively as though there is no source, there's only the manifest, then you're cutting yourself off from the power, which is what most people seem to do. And so most people get results in their lives that are consistent with that, right? Which is why most people are struggling with the things that they struggle with: a sense of powerlessness, a sense of separation, a sense of frustration, anxiety, disappointment, discouragement. And so I'm pointing all this out just because, like I said, I wanted to cover the basics because it's so important to have this understanding of the basics. Otherwise, you just keep living your life in ignorance, and you'll, as a result, keep getting the same kinds of results and not seeing any real substantial improvement. So you have to have a real a grounding in the basics so that you can get the good results. So um, so having this awareness that and having a conscious connection with the source, with the power, is very important if you want to get better results, if you want to make positive changes in your life. Then having that connection consciously is very, very important. And in case that's not clear why, I mean, maybe it should be clear why, because again, it's the source of the power, but I'll try to make it a little bit more explicit also. So we have desires. Those desires are expressed and manifest in the manifest realm. And so we're playing in that realm. And that's how we work things out. That's how we learn. So we're wanting to have mastery of that. And just think about that in your life. You want to have mastery of your experience. Isn't that true? If you don't have mastery of your experience, then you continue to suffer. You continue to suffer from all the same things that you've been suffering from. So you want to have mastery. And what that means is you want to be successful. You want to be able to know how it all works. You want to be able to take action and get consistent good results with that. You want to know that if I do A, I'll get B. You want to have that level of mastery. And so having if you're if so having an understanding of the basic structure and being connected to the whole is obviously important for that. Because how does this all work? Well, everything is appearing, all the manifest is appearing from the unmanifest. So if you are not aware of and connected consciously to the unmanifest, then how can you create? You can't. And this is why I say most people are just rearranging the furniture. So I'm going to use a metaphor of a house. So we could say the house is like is the structure of our creation. And we've uh, put furniture into that house. So that's all of our creation, all of our experience that we've put into that house, metaphorically. And most people beyond that, they don't actually create at all. And that's why I say they just rearrange the furniture. So what most people consider to be creativity is not creative at all. It's just rearranging the furniture. And that's because they've cut themselves off from the source. I mean, you can't really cut yourself off, but they're not consciously connected to the source, so they're not consciously able to create. So they're just repeating the same stuff, which is then trying to rearrange that to give a sense of novelty. But ultimately it's disappointing because it's unfulfilling because it's just a repetition of the same old, which was never actually satisfying. And so this business of just rearranging the furniture is not what we really want to be doing. It is not the point of our lives. You will not be satisfied going to your grave having just rearranged the furniture. But this is the sad state of things, is that most people come into this life with this, they've inherited their house with their furniture, and then they spend the rest of their lives just rearranging the furniture. That's kind of how things go. But there's another possibility, and you have access to that now. And that's a possibility of true fulfillment. And so, but in order to have that true fulfillment, you have to have the knowledge, and then you have to put that into practice. So it has to be, you have to have the knowledge, you have to put it into practice. So you want to have that understanding that that true creativity means that something is actually emerging from the source. So it's actually new. It's truly new. It's truly created. emerging from the source. So in order for that to happen consciously, you actually clearly have to have conscious awareness of the source. You have to be witness to that. You have to be a, a present for that process. So then there's this other business, the other end of the spectrum, which is that you've already got stuff created out here in your house, so to speak. So I'm using again the metaphor of the house for what is created. So we've got our world, which is our house. It's our creation, and we've put furniture into it, which is all the stuff that occupies our experience. And you want to create something new. So you want to put, we'll say, new furniture into the house. Well, think about this. Your house already has furniture. So if you just put new furniture in there, then that's not going to work. I mean, not for very long, right? I mean, you're just going to get really cluttered. So there's another part of this, which is very essential, which is that you have to be able to remove what's already created that you no longer want. You have to be able to remove that. Well, if it exists in the creation and you want to remove it, where does it have to go? Obviously, it has to go back into the unmanifest, because that's the exchange that's going on. There's this constant play that's happening, which is this movement from unmanifest to manifest, manifest to unmanifest, unmanifest to manifest, manifest to unmanifest. That's the movement that's constantly going on. But again, for most people, because they're not conscious of this, then it's just a constant repetition. It's just the same thing that's being created and uncreated, created and uncreated. Because everything is winking in and out of existence all the time. But for most of us, the template that's being used for that creation each time is the same template. So we create the same thing. So if we want to change that, then it's not enough just to know how to create something consciously. You actually have to know how to uncreate something consciously. You have to know metaphorically how to remove that furniture from the house back into the unmanifest. So that's the basics that I want to cover in a little bit of depth so that you can have that knowledge so you can start to work with it. And like I said, my aim was to keep things simple. I hope that I am keeping things simple. Maybe it sounds very complicated, but it's hopefully you can see it's not that complicated. I'm just using a lot of words, blah, 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 to try and express something that's fundamentally very simple. So you are a singularity. You are one being. Everything that is happening, at least everything in your reality, everything that you know is happening in this singularity that you are, in this oneness that you are, in this consciousness that you are, in this space that you are, in this awareness that you are. Okay, so that was the start, was to have a direct experience of that, to recognize that all that you're experiencing, all that you ever will experience, is happening subjectively. It's happening as the sounds, the sights, the tastes, the touch, and so forth, and the thoughts that are happening where? Subjectively in consciousness that you are. It's just a play of mind that says it's happening outside of me, but it's never happening outside of you. You'll never, ever, 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 ever find anything outside of you. You can tell a story that I am this body and there are things that appear to be outside of this body, therefore there are things that are happening outside of me. But if you actually tell the deeper truth and the more intimate truth, you'll realize that this body and everything that appears to be outside of the body is all happening in the awareness that you are. That's the main foundation of everything. So that's step one, just to have that awareness that everything is happening subjectively in the space of awareness that you are. There's never anything outside of that. That's all there is. So all of creation is happening in the awareness that you are. So there's a singularity, and that singularity, like a coin, appears to have two sides, but it's only one reality. But the two sides that it appears to have are the two sides of formless and form. And in this sense, we can see that the formless is the source. It's the potential, and everything else is emerging from that as a vibration, and then it merges back in with that. So that's the play that's going on. Is there's a singularity that has these two apparent sides to it, and there's a movement that's happening constantly from the one side, which is formless and pure potential and unmanifest, into the manifest realm and then back again. So there's this just constant movement that's happening. And then I'm pointing out that in order to have, we want to have mastery so that we can remove fear, so that we can have confidence, so that we can be happy. Um, because if you think about it, if you don't have that, there will always be anxiety. Just notice the truth of that. No matter how much stuff you get, no matter how much power, no matter how much sex, no matter how much money, no matter how many uh, uh, creative things you accomplish, no matter how much you do in this world, you will always have that underlying anxiety so long as you don't have a grounding in that which does not come and go. Because all that other stuff comes and goes. You can't hold on to it. It's impossible. That's its nature is that it comes and goes. So if you don't have that grounding in that which is continuous and eternal, then that anxiety has to be there. So uh, so that's so far what what I've what I've suggested. Now, let's look at um, based on that, what basic knowledge and skills do we need in order to be successful and happy in life? And some people propose that all you need to know and all you really need is to know that you are that formless awareness. And it's true, but it's sort of a half truth. I mean, because you just have to tell the truth for yourself. Is that enough for you? And for most of us, it's not. And the reason it's not is pretty simple and straightforward. It's because we still have desires and attachments that aren't fulfilled. And so we need to fulfill and release those. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, one possible way is that you could just withdraw from the world. And that's one approach. And some people do that. Some people do it successfully and some people do it unsuccessfully. And you just have to tell the truth about whether you are the sort of person who's going to do it successfully or unsuccessfully. And guess what? If you've got unfulfilled desires and attachments that continue to draw you back into the world, then you're probably not going to do it successfully. That's why people who do it successfully tend to not only they tend to withdraw from their participation in life. I mean, it is a possibility that one can attain uh, that realization without that complete withdrawal, but it's rare. Most of the time, it happens through a withdrawal from the world, which is why, classically you go to a cave in the Himalayas. So are you going to do that? Probably not. So then you want to recognize, don't despair. There's a way for you, but you have to be clear about it so that you don't confuse yourself and try and think that the only way that you can succeed is to do the thing that you're not going to do, because that's a setup for misery, right? If you think the only way I can succeed is to do the thing that I'm not going to do, then boy, oh boy, that's going to be hard. But so what I'm proposing is, from my perspective, very good news, which is that you can succeed. You can achieve total mastery, happiness, and peace, self-knowledge. That's possible. And you can do that without having to withdraw from the world. But you have to be clear about what your path is. And if you keep falling back into thinking the only way that I can succeed is to withdraw from the world, and you're not going to withdraw from the world, then you won't succeed in that way. So then I'm just proposing be clear about what your path is. So are you somebody who's going to withdraw from the world? If so, then please go ahead and withdraw from the world. But that means you're not using Zoom or YouTube, right? Um, and so if you are using Zoom or YouTube or other internet technologies, then guess what? You should choose a different path that you can actually have success with. So that means that then you have to acknowledge that you have unfulfilled desires and attachments that you need to resolve, and that you can do that by manifesting them consciously. Some people are really hung up on this. They say, "Oh, no, 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 that means that that's just all a recipe for suffering." Okay. I mean, if you're committed to that belief, then please go somewhere else because I don't have anything to offer you. You can find somebody who will have something to offer you, but not me, because that's not what I'm offering. But I'm offering something different, which is that you can have success when you know who you are and you're committed to a path that will work for you. And so I'm proposing that it's possible to resolve the things that need to be resolved by manifesting consciously, which gives you, it clarifies your self knowledge and it gives you self mastery, which removes fear. So it becomes a virtuous cycle. And so, in order to do that successfully, then we want to understand again the basics of how to do that. So I've set the foundation, hopefully. Now I'm going to go through the, we'll call them technologies that will allow you to have success with that. But the foundation is to understand what I've said so far so that you can make that commitment to yourself so you don't um, confuse yourself and distract yourself with things that aren't actually going to be helpful for you. Because if you just keep believing the only way that I can succeed is to be a renunciate, but I'm not going to renounce, then you're keeping yourself stuck. And that's a miserable thing. I know because I did it to myself. It's torturous, absolutely torturous. And it won't lead to anything except for more self torture. So once you've once this is clear to you what I'm saying to you, then you just need to know, you need to commit to your path, and then you need to have the basic knowledge of the technologies that will allow you to succeed with that, and then you have to follow through on those. And understand that what I'm about to tell you, and in general, all of this is, it's all true, and it's in a sense it is all that you need, but in practice there are many nuances. So uh, in reality, most of us need to have repeated exposure to this information, and then ongoing support to clarify doubts and help to clear up other things that come up along the way. But what I am sharing with you is it's the essential truth, and that's why I'm saying I want to present it in a way that hopefully is relatively simple, so that you don't think, oh, I've got to learn a billion different things and I need, 100 different techniques and I've got to, do all of these things. No, it's actually quite simple. So there are two things that I've already kind of outlined, but I'm going to make it explicit now. So you we could say three. Okay. The first among those things is to regularly ground yourself in the recognition of your essential oneness, including that source awareness, that source of pure potential. Okay. So that's really, really, really helpful. And I recommend that you do have a daily practice where you do that. At first, you maybe need to do it formally. It's always helpful to do it formally. Okay, so just take a few minutes each day. If you want to, it's really helpful if it's a habit. So in order to establish a habit, make it same place, same time, and just take a few minutes and just go through a simple little exercise like what I guided you through, where you just let go of the unnecessary noise and just tune into and recognize that which is always here, which has to be you. Just start to recognize that. Now, the wonderful thing is that the more familiar you become with that, the more you practice that, the more you'll be able to access that on demand anytime, anywhere, under any conditions, which is a life changer. Okay. Because when you can recognize that, it's like a reset. So if you are all wrapped up in some drama, which many of us are, right? Much of the time, we're wrapped up in a lot of drama. The ability to consciously recognize that you are not that drama, but that drama is occurring in the formless awareness that you are, that spaciousness, which is ever free. That's a life-changing thing. So formally practicing every day gives you that self-awareness that allows you then to tap into that and connect with that consciously anytime, anywhere. You don't have to close your eyes and make some mudra and chant om and things like that. You can just on demand connect to that and recognize that. So but that's something that is gained through practice and familiarity. So practice it regularly. It doesn't take long, just a few minutes. And the more that you practice it, the more proficient you'll get at that. So that's the first thing. Now, the other two things are what I've already hinted at earlier, which is that you want to uh, gain mastery over the process of conscious creation, which is the emergence of form from the formless. And then you want to also gain mastery over the conscious uh, um, dissolution of that which has already been created, so that you don't end up with a situation where you've got a house full of clutter. Again, I'm using the house as a metaphor for your life experience, for your creation, for your world. So we want to have mastery over both of those things. Hopefully it's clear why, but I'll just repeat it just so that it is clear. You need to know how to create consciously. Otherwise, all you have is what's already been created. And if that's not fulfilling to you, then the best you're going to hope for is to rearrange the furniture, but it will never be fulfilling to you, no matter how many different ways you rearrange it. So conscious creation is an essential skill. But then also the other essential skill is conscious dissolution of that which has already been created. Because, as I already pointed out, using the metaphor of the house, if you want to put something into that house and the house already has something in it, you need to remove the existing stuff, right? If you want to remodel, refurnish your house, you've got to take out the old stuff. Otherwise, then you just have clutter. That's worse, actually. So you have to learn how to gain confidence and mastery over conscious dissolution. So I want to now talk about how you can, the basics of these skills. So none of this should be a big surprise, but if you've been around before, then I've talked about these things before, but maybe probably there will be some new insight that will happen for you today. So so again, I want to keep things simple. So are there many different techniques that can be used in order to facilitate these processes? Yes. Do some techniques have advantages over other techniques? Sure. Uh, if I tried to present you with all the techniques, then we'd be here forever. And the unfortunate thing about that is that you wouldn't actually gain any skill or mastery in that way, because you'd just be learning about a superficial overview of all the techniques. Whereas in order to in order to succeed, what you need is to put into practice the techniques or the knowledge so that you can gain that confidence and mastery. And so please understand that it's a big mistake to just be constantly uh, fretting about whether you have the best technique or knowledge or not. All you need, don't worry about that. You just need you just need something that works. You just need the basic knowledge, and you need some technique that will allow you to get a foothold so that you can start your journey, so that you can gain that mastery. Because in the long run, it's not about the techniques. The techniques are there just to support you in gaining the practical, direct knowledge. It's the practical, direct knowledge that actually gives the mastery and the results, not the techniques. The techniques, I mean, in the short run, the techniques can give some results, but those results are superficial and limited, because you can use a technique to manifest $1 million, and that might sound great to you, but again, uh, it's it's like it won't really do it for you in the long run. Just manifesting $1 million, or just manifesting that one particular relationship, or just manifesting that whatever that one thing is, it won't do it for you. And in fact, just an accumulation of a bunch of those things won't do it for you either, because what you're actually looking for is the authentic confidence that comes from true self-knowledge and true self-mastery. And that's not something that you can get through a technique alone. It's something that you get through the practical application and the learning that comes through that. And ultimately, that's what really gives you what you're looking for. So it's not the techniques. So don't get hung up on the techniques. I'm going to give you some simple techniques. Don't worry whether these are the only techniques. They're not, and don't worry about whether they're the best techniques. They may or may not be, but they're sufficient to get you started and to help you so that you can gain the direct experience that will help you to gain that authentic self-confidence and self-mastery so that you can really get the fulfillment that you're seeking for. Okay, so the first thing is having to do with the conscious creation. So super, super, super simple. And at the same time, it's the most difficult thing. You have to know what you want. You've heard me say this before. Um, but I have to keep saying it because uh, it's so fundamental and it's so easy for people to dismiss it or overlook it. But when you have completely satisfied uh, this requirement, you will be very, very happy. And so if you're not very, very happy in all ways, if you've got, if there's any dissatisfaction, then you probably have not mastered this. So it's worth continuing to look at. So what do you really want? And you, there's usually, we could say there's two basic responses to this that people might have initially. One would be they say, I already know what I want. And the other response would be, I have no idea what I want, and I don't even know how I could ever know what I want. Totally overwhelmed with that proposition that I could figure out what I want. Okay. Um, so neither of those are helpful if you accept them as the truth and you just hang out there. Okay. Because the point here is that you engage with the process of inquiring into what you really want. It's really the sincere engagement with the process that gives you the results. It's not the answer itself. It's so if you arrive at the answer and you say, I know what I want, hallelujah. Okay, great for now, but what about tomorrow? What about next month? The answer is static. And remember, all things come and go. So you get the answer. It might seem true now, but tomorrow it will have changed. And if you're still clinging to it, then you're not actually present to the living reality. You're still clinging to the past. So it's about the sincere, honest engagement with the process of inquiring into what you really want. So do that sincerely every day. And I recommend that you write it down. Why? Because if you write it down, then you've made it concrete and you actually have something that you can focus on. Is it an absolute requirement that you write it down? No. Many people can succeed without writing it down. I mean, presumably there were an enormous number of very successful people in this who were able to do this prior to mass spread literacy. So writing it down is not an absolute requirement, but you have the ability to write things down. It can be helpful. So I just recommend that you make use of it because if you don't write it down, you can really fool yourself and say, "Oh, I'm doing it." Are you really? Maybe you are, but maybe not. But if you write it down, then pretty, it's black or white. You did it or you didn't do it. So it's just a helpful practice for self-honesty. So I recommend each day write it down what you want. Or if you've already written it down and it still rings true for you, then great. You don't have to write it down again, but you could read it each day. But write it down. What do you want? And what you want. So this can be something that uh, the point again is not to arrive at the right answer per se. The point is to engage in the process. So if you get hung up on this and you say, "Oh, I don't know, I can't write it down because I haven't figured it out," well, then you're not really engaging sincerely in the process. Just write it down, whatever wherever you're at in that process. So you might say, "Well, I'm so smart, I know that what I really want isn't the $1 million," but you keep thinking you want the $1 million. You're still hung up on the $1 million. So just write down the $1 million. I have $1 million. I'm so grateful and happy that I have the $1 million because that's just how you start to engage sincerely in the process. Now, will that evolve? Yeah, but it's not likely to evolve if you don't start where you are. So a lot of the time, sometimes, not a lot of the time, sometimes people are too smart for their own good. And so they get themselves hung up in this way. They say, like I said, they say, "Oh, I know that it's not really about the $1 million." Okay, but if you want the $1 million, just write it down, start there. Like they say, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step or something like that. Mhm. So you have to take that step. You have to just be willing to start. Just humor me, write it down, write down what you want. Write it down in the present tense as though it's already true. Not, I want this thing tomorrow or next day or in the future. I have this thing. I am this thing. Why? Because that's how the creative process works. So whatever, uh, it's instantly manifest as soon as you think it or affirm it. It's instantly manifest, at least at the level of thought. And remember that all of creation consists of subjective experience. So think about that for a moment. That means that uh, your actual experience, including what you think of as being exterior and objective experience, actually consists of subjective phenomena, including thought, feeling, imagery, and so forth. So uh, think about that. The instant that you think it, it is manifest at the level of thought. And you might say, oh, but who cares? Well, I'm telling you, it matters a great deal because that's a significant component of your actual experience, including what you consider to be objective experience. If you can't think it, you're going to have a really hard time experiencing it. So the instant that you think it, the instant you write it down, then it is manifest at that level of thought. And that's significant. It's very important. That will be very supportive and foundational because you can build from that. Then you can start to build the feeling and the imagery and so forth. So hopefully that's clear to you. If not, then just humor me and just start to write it down, what you desire, in the present tense as though it's already true. And it should be in a positive. Why? Because there's a basic law. Whatever you put your attention on, that's where the energy goes and that grows. So if you put your attention on what you don't want in the negative, so you say, I want not to be poor, then where is your attention going? Your attention is going to poverty, right? Because you want not to be poor. So your attention is actually going to what you don't want instead of what you do want, which is why you have to figure out what you do want, not what you don't want. What you don't, it's like figuring out what you don't want is useful only to the extent that you're then willing to take the next step and figure out what you actually want. Because what you want is the opposite of what you don't want. But you have to take that step and be clear about what you do want in the positive, not what you don't want. Because again, if you only focus on what you don't want, you're putting your attention on what you don't want. So it doesn't count to say, I don't want something. I want to be free of something. I want not to have this thing. Because then you're just putting your attention on the thing that you don't want or that you want to be free of, which means that gets the energy and therefore grows. So you have to be clear about what you actually want. So if you say, I want not to be poor, well, what do you want? I want to experience abundance at all levels. I want to experience that security, happiness, peace, and prosperity at all levels of my existence. Okay, great. Write that down, read it every day. Because then this fundamental law is working for you, or you're working consciously with that law, which is that whatever you put your attention on, that's where the energy goes and that's what grows. So if you write it down, you've made it conscious, it's manifest instantly at that level, then you put your attention on it consistently each day, it gets more energy each day. So if you do just that much, I know it sounds, oh my goodness, that's so simple. How could that possibly work? Well, humor me, do it. Do that every day, let's say for the rest of your life. But okay, how about do that every day for a minimum of 90 days and then see what happens. And I promise you, you will see results from it. Now, let's get to the other side of the equation, which is that you have to learn how to have skill in consciously dissolving that which you don't want. Okay, so that which has already been created that you don't want, you have to consciously dissolve. Because again, if you're creating something, but your space is already occupied by something else, then sorry, no room. So you've got to remove that which is occupying the space that you no longer want those things so that you can make room for that which you do want. So this is a big problem that people run into because if they do just half of the equation, which is the half that I've proposed so far, so they write their statement, they read it each day, they feel it, imagine it. Okay, do that each day. They're engaging in that creative process, but then they run into this block because there's no room. So where's it going to go? You've filled up your house with, it's crammed full of junk. You can't fit anything else in there. So create all you want. It doesn't have anywhere to go. It bounces right back into the unmanifest. It's like, sorry, try again later. So this is where a lot of people get hung up. So I'm giving you this information so that you don't suffer from that anymore. So you have to also every day consciously dissolve those things that you don't want. And I'm going to, again, there are many, many, many ways of doing this. Some techniques have certain advantages over others. Might some be better than others in a certain sense? Yes. But so is the technique that I'm about to propose to you the only way? No, obviously not. Is it the best way? I don't know. Will it work? Yes. But it only works if you work it. So you have to be willing to do it each day. But I promise you, if you do it each day, you'll get good results. And I can promise you these things, number one, because they're just simply true. Number two, because I've done them. I've put them all to the test. I've gotten the results. I promise you they work. Not only have I gotten the results, but other people who I have coached have gotten the results. So I know that it works. I know it will work for you. These are universal principles. They're just the truth. You have to be willing to apply them consistently. So if you say, and sometimes people do this, they say, oh, well, how can I know it works? Try it out. Do it sincerely every day for 90 days, get the results, and then find out directly for yourself. And there's very little that is required here. I mean, we're just talking about a few minutes sincerely applied each day in order to get these results. Okay, so now I'm going to give you a technique that you can use in order to consciously dissolve those already created things that you're ready to let go of. So those already created things, they could be literal objects. Okay, they could be objects, but they could be subtle things as well. Okay, so it could be this is the more important thing, is the subtle stuff, like your habits of feeling and thinking and belief. Those are really the most important things, because that's how you create your entire experience. So in order to explain this, let's just look briefly and see again, because this is review, because I've already pointed it out, but it's important just to understand this. What is it that your actual experience consists of? So all of phenomenal reality, what does it actually consist of? And hopefully you can already see that it consists of your subjective experience. So thoughts, feelings, and so forth. So it's all subjective. So then we could say, in a sense, we've got this formless substance, the pure potential, and we give it form, we shape it through our senses and thoughts. And of these, for most of us, the three most important things are the thought, the feeling, and the image. So the other things, for some people, some of the other things are also important, the smell, the taste, and the whatever else, the sound. But for most of us, the thought, the sound, and the thought, the feeling, and the image are the most significant components. So I just want to focus on those. So if you think about it, one way of describing this, and it's not the only way of describing it. So again, I'm just giving you one model for working with this. But one way to understand that is that what we're talking about is fundamentally a belief. So we could say that your experience, that reality fundamentally is formless, but it takes form through your belief. And your belief consists of a thought, an image, and a feeling. And most fundamental is the thought and the feeling. The image for some people is more important than others, but I would argue that at most fundamental level, it's the thought and the feeling that are most important. But it's kind of the combination of these three things, the thought, the feeling, and the image, that goes together to give form. And I'm describing that as a belief. And again, this is just one model. So you don't have to think this is the only way of understanding it, and don't try and overlay it with other things that you already know. Just hear this out and just see the simplicity of it. Because again, I'm trying to give you something relatively simple that you can work with so you can get results. So what I'm proposing to you is that you can work through belief in order to change your experience. That belief is, in a sense, the one of, if not the fundamental construct of experience. I mean, we could break it down, as I've already said, into more fundamental components like thought, feeling, image, taste, touch, whatever. But as a building block, we could say that's a kind of basic building block, a unit. The basic unit is belief that gives form to our experience. So it's fundamentally formless, but it becomes formed through belief. And again, the belief, I'm using this term belief just to describe this combination of the thought, the feeling, and the image. So we can look at all of the stuff that is cluttering our lives, all of our creation that we don't really want around anymore. And we could view it through the lens of belief. And then we can work with belief in order to liberate ourselves from all of that clutter so that we can dissolve it back into its formless nature, which makes room for us to be able to create what we want. So hopefully that's clear. I'm going to give you a really brief, simple way that you can do this now. So you can elicit those limiting beliefs that are interfering with you having the experience that you desire in any number of ways. One obvious, simple way is just to brainstorm. Just, what beliefs do you have that are obviously limiting, that are causing you problems? Make a list of them. Again, write them down. A lot of people, they don't take this step. I suggest to people, write it down, and then I can see people they're not going to do it. Okay. If you're not going to do it, then your chance of success is just dramatically decreased. So when I say write it down, I really mean that. If you want the results, write it down. Make a list, write them down. For best results, honestly, use pen and paper. Or pencil and paper, whatever, but non-digital. Actually write it down using your hand for best results. If you're going to refuse to do that, okay, fine, use something digital. It'll be better than not doing it. But you will get better results. I don't know why this is, hold on a second. Aha. Okay, there was a setting that was not correct here. Okay, I was distracted for a moment because somebody was unmuting. But actually write this down. Okay, so write down a list of all of the limiting beliefs that are interfering with you having the experience that you want in your life. Another way that you can do this, which you're still going to make a list. And so this is a running list. It's just you keep adding to it. You don't have to figure them all out in one go. Just make a running list of the limiting beliefs that are interfering with you having the experience that you want to have. And then, so you could just brainstorm, generally speaking, just say, ask yourself, what are the limiting beliefs that I'm holding on to that are interfering with me having the experience that I want to have? Write them down. They'll come to you. But also, as you do the first exercise that I suggested to you, which is that every day you put your attention on what it is that you truly want, then you take a moment to imagine that as true, okay? Whatever that is. Imagine it as true, and it should, your aim is to be able to imagine it and so that you can feel it as though it's totally natural and real, like you're just remembering what you ate for breakfast. So it's not particularly extraordinary. It's just very normal and natural and real. That's the idea. So it's not like, oh, it's so extraordinary. I've got $1 million. It's amazing. It's just, I have $1 million. It's just like remembering what I had for breakfast. Yeah, I looked at my bank account earlier today. I had $1 million. And of course I have $1 million because I knew I had $1 million because I have $1 million because that's the sort of person I am. I have $1 million. I always have $1 million, if not more. But it's that natural and real for you. So that's the aim there. Now, as you're imagining that each day, pay attention to where you get blocked in feeling or perceiving that it's totally natural and real. And guess what? If you actually pay attention, you'll identify limiting beliefs because your brain will start to offer them up. It will say, who are you kidding? You can't have $1 million. You're a loser. Oh, great. Write it down. I'm a loser. I can't have $1 million. Or who are you kidding? You don't have a job. I don't have a job, therefore I can't have $1 million. It's a limiting belief. You just have to start to notice these things, write them down. And I'm just giving this an example with money. This works with anything. Please understand that. Anything at all. Health, relationship, finance, creative expression, spiritual aspirations, whatever it is. So you write them down. Write down the limiting beliefs. Okay, now, once you've written them down, I often say this to people. You might have heard me say this before. I'm going to say it again because it makes sense to me. Writing them down, making them conscious. So if you write them down, you have to make them conscious. This is why I encourage writing them down, because otherwise people will say, oh, I'm doing it. Are you really? Have you really made them conscious? Are you sure about that? Write them down, then you know for sure. In order to write them down, you have to put them into words, which means that you have to make it conscious. Now, making it conscious is like 90% of the work. And I liken it to being in a room with the lights off and you're bumping into stuff every time you try to move. All that stuff that you're bumping into are the limiting beliefs. They're there, you're bumping into them, it hurts you, but you don't have confidence about your ability to do anything about it because the lights are off, you're in the dark. So that's the consequence of it being unconscious. They're there, you're feeling the negative effects, but you can't do anything about it because you can't see them. So obviously, what's the remedy there? Turn the light on. Once the light is on, you can see it, you can do something about it. So making it conscious is like turning the light on. That's why I say it does 90% of the work, because once you have made it conscious, you can see it, you can do something about it. So please do yourself this favor and do the little exercise. Make a running list of your limiting beliefs that are interfering with you having the experience you want to have. Write them down because that makes them conscious. It does 90% of the work in helping you to release them. So once you've got a list, then all you have to do is take a little bit of time each day to consciously release or dissolve one of these limiting beliefs. And you might say, well, how could I do that? And I'm going to tell you. So remember that the belief consists of a thought, a feeling, and an image, and maybe other things, but those are the main components: thought, feeling, and image. So think about this. The thought itself is not the belief. I've already said as much, but I'm just making that explicit, right? The thought by itself is not a belief, because you could think many things, but you don't believe most of them. So remember, it's the thought, the feeling, and the image. And of the two, I said the thought and the feeling are the most important. So a belief requires for sure a feeling. It's absolutely impossible that you would have a belief without a feeling. If you don't feel it, you don't believe it. And understand how important that is, what I've just said. If you don't feel it, you don't believe it. So the thought and the feeling are the core of the belief. This is so, so, so important to understand, because it's the feeling that gives the sense of reality to the belief. It's the feeling that gives the sense of reality to your experience. That's why feeling is so important with everything. If you don't feel it, it's not real for you. And that's works in both ways, right? So in the creative phase, you have to feel it in order for it to be real for you. That's why you have to put your attention on it and feel it as though it's natural and real. Otherwise, it's not real for you. It's the feeling that makes it real. And in the other way around, when you want to dissolve something that's already been created, you have to remove the association of the feeling and the thought. So let's understand, how did most of these things came about not consciously? Some of them did, but most of the things that have been created in our lives did not come about consciously, so we don't consciously remember creating them. But they all came about in the same fundamental way, which was that there was a feeling and a thought, and then other things that went along with it, the image and whatever. But the feeling and the thought are key. So at some point you had a feeling, and then in order to give meaning to that, you had a thought to interpret it. And that became the belief. So that's what's been running the show all this time, is this belief that consists of this thought and this feeling and the image and whatever else, but the thought and the feeling are the core of it that's been running your life. And you can dissolve it by dissociating the thought and the feeling. So again, there are many techniques for this. Some might be more effective than others, but here I'm just giving you something that you can work with, you can get started with, and you can start to have success with it. If you persist in it sincerely, you will have success. Might you need additional coaching and support sometimes with some things? Yeah, sure. But again, if you every day consistently apply what I'm telling you and what I'm about to tell you, I promise you for sure, you will get good results, because what I'm telling you is just about based on how things actually are. So that it's just like, if you do it, you get the results. Okay. So, in order to dissociate the thought and the feeling, you have to be willing to take a look at it. So you've made it conscious by writing it down. Now, each day, take one or more of those beliefs, but one at a time, and read it and notice whether you still feel it or not. Okay. So if you read it and you say, oh yeah, it kind of feels true, great. So that means you need to do the work to release it. So now here's what you do. Ask yourself if it's true. And it's not, I promise you. Because what happens with these things is we had a feeling, and then we came up with a thought to give meaning to it. So it was never true. It was never, ever, ever true. There was a feeling, and then and the feeling was just a feeling. You just had the feeling. The feeling didn't have any meaning to it, but you came up with a thought to assign meaning to it. So it was never actually true. It's impossible that it could have been true. But through unconscious repetition, mostly, we just have come to accept that it's true. And then we build up lots of evidence over time that we think proves that it's true. So let's use an example, like say, I'm no good at math. And so, so if that was true for you, then you test it. You say, okay, I'm no good at math. Do you feel it? If it's true, you feel it. Great. So now let's see, is it true? And you might, off the bat, you might say, of course it's true. Everybody knows I'm no good at math. Okay. But how do you know it's true? What's your evidence of that? And so you have to actually look and see, why do you believe this is true? Because I promise you it's not true. Again, you just had a feeling, and then you came up with a thought to give meaning to it. So it was never, ever true. It was just a feeling. It's always just been a feeling. But then you came up with a thought to assign meaning to it. And that was based on some experiences. So your brain just came up with something that was plausible, right? So, okay, if I believe I'm no good at math, well, I might say, okay, why do I believe that's true? Well, because I've performed certain types of math poorly with a lack of confidence in my life. Okay, so that's interesting. So I've had poor performance on certain types of mathematical things in my life. So that's my evidence. So what's actually true is that I have a feeling and I have a thought and I have some experiences where I demonstrated that I didn't perform as well as I thought I should on certain mathematical things in my life. Does that prove that I'm actually not good at math? No. All it proves is that I have a thought and I have a feeling and I had some experiences. Now, sometimes we say, oh, come on, who are you fooling? That definitely proves that I'm no good at math, but it's not actually not true. All it proves is exactly what it is and nothing more. So if you were to keep looking at, you just have to keep looking at it until you can get clear that it's not true. It's not true that, and so you can also help yourself in a couple of ways. Like you could say, okay, well, so what's really the root of this? Well, when I was in second grade, I failed several math tests, and my teacher said that I was stupid. Okay, so there you go. So what actually happened? Well, I failed some math tests, and my teacher said I was stupid. So is it actually true that I'm not good at math? No. hopefully you can see that it's not actually true. It's just that there were some events that happened, there was a feeling, and then there was an interpretation that was given to that. And then, of course, what's the natural consequence of that? Well, if I accept that that's true, then if I believe that I'm no good at math, what's the likelihood that I'm going to bother to apply myself and learn and get better? Well, not so good. Right. So then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now you can also take a look at this and you can say, okay, is it, so I'm no good at math. Is that true? Well, are there any counterexamples? Like, is there any type of math that I'm good at? Can I add 1 and 1? Yes, I can add 1 and 1. Oh, well, then it's not true that you're not good at math, right? Because this is what happens is we make these generalizations. So this is a certain type of poor logic. Like we say, I had a family dog when I was a child, and my dog was friendly. And my cousins had a dog, and my cousin's dog was friendly. And I had a friend who had a dog, and their dog was friendly. Therefore, all dogs are friendly. Well, wait a second, is that true? Obviously not, because you might run into some unfriendly dogs in your life. I know somebody's going to say, oh, that's not true. There's no unfriendly dogs, whatever. But come on, there's some unfriendly dogs. So, but this is the kind of logic that we use oftentimes and it's unconscious, but we make these generalizations. So we think now that might not, that particular belief may or may not be problematic in our lives, that all dogs are friendly. Cat's going to jump down, might knock into things here. Nope. Okay. So, but it can be very problematic for other things. So I'm no good at math, may or may not be problematic. But then there are a lot of other types of beliefs that we have, and it's usually the identity beliefs that are the most problematic. Like, I'm no good. Okay, so I'm no good. Is that problematic? If you have that belief, is that problematic in your life? Absolutely, no question about it. You cannot be happy with that belief. There's no way. I mean, you might be conditionally happy every once in a while, but you're not going to be really fundamentally happy as long as you have that belief. So how did that belief come to be? Well, the same kind of thing. Like, so I'm no good. Well, so, is it true? Are you no good? Like, what does that even mean? You're no good at anything? Is that possible? Like, so have you succeeded? Are you good? Have you succeeded in breathing? Yes. Okay. Well, then it can't possibly be true that you're no good. Have you succeeded in putting food in your mouth? Yes. Well, then it can't be true that you're no good. You're good at some things. You're successful at some things. So it can't possibly be true that you're no good. But what happened was that there were some experiences where we had some feeling, and then in order to try and get control or a sense of control in life, we formed this thought that it's a generalization, just like saying, well, my dog was friendly, my cousin's dog was friendly, therefore all dogs are friendly. We have some experience or repeated experiences where we experience that I didn't succeed at something. I didn't succeed at this, I didn't succeed at that, and I didn't succeed at this other thing. Plus, my mom called me stupid. Therefore, I'm no good. And then that's a program that's just running forever until we choose to dissolve it. So you have to write down all these beliefs and then go through them systematically day by day. And you ask yourself, is it true? And you have to start to actually see that it is not true. Now, at this level, this doesn't typically completely dissolve the belief, but it's a necessary step. You have to actually see it's not true. So this is sort of at a logical, rational level, so you can actually see it is not true. Now, the next part of this is that you want to see, and this, I believe this is very important, because until you see this, you're not likely to be motivated to actually release the belief. So the next part of this is to see that what is the consequence of having this belief in your life? So when you believe that, what does that do for you? So if I believe that I'm no good at math, then what are the consequences for me in my life? Now, again, that may or may not be significantly problematic depending on who the person is, but let's take another belief like I'm no good. So if I have the belief I'm no good, what does that have? What are the consequences of that in my life? You have to take an honest look and see that it's entirely disastrous for your life. There is no good that comes from having that belief. It ruins everything. It ruins your career success, your financial success, your relationship success, it has negative impacts on your health, everything. Everything is negatively impacted by that belief. You have to see that. You have to feel the pain of that. You have to realize, holy cow, this belief is ruining my life. There is no positive whatsoever to having this belief. Therefore, when I can see that it is not true, and I can see that it is entirely negative, the consequences are entirely negative, there is no way that I can justify keeping that belief any longer. So at this point, um, there's one other step that is very helpful here. I mean, you could just go to just choosing to release the belief, and so you could try that out. Okay, you could just take the short approach. Once you've established those two things, and you can see, okay, this belief is clearly no good. There's no reason to hold on to this belief at all. So therefore, it's in my best interest to let it go. Then use your power to let it go. So you could just do that. You could just choose, just make a firm resolve, because your intention is extraordinarily powerful. So you just resolve within yourself, I choose to release this belief completely and forever. And then feel that you're releasing it within yourself. So if you do that consistently, eventually that belief will release. Now, there's one other step that sometimes is very helpful in here, is that it may be, so we form these beliefs as a way of protecting ourselves. We didn't feel safe. Okay, so like life is this big wide open thing, and we're saying, I don't feel safe. So I would rather collapse the big wide open thing into something of certainty. It was a big mistake, right? We say, I don't feel safe with wide openness, so I'd rather just go with I'm no good. I'm no good is certain. It's not wide open, but it turns out it's terrible, right? But that's the mistake that we make in the moment, in our ignorance and innocence, is that we feel this big wide openness. We're afraid. We have this feeling, and we say, I don't know what to do about it. How about I'm no good? Okay, at least I have a little bit of sense of control. Gives me this temporary sense of relief. So we gives us a false sense of protection. And we form those beliefs in the past, right? It has to be so. You didn't form the belief in the future, you formed the belief in the past. So in general, it could be said, I suppose there are exceptions to this, but in general, we tend to have fewer resources in the past and less knowledge in the past versus in the present. So think about, if you formed a belief when you were 5 years old, then you were smaller, right? So you had fewer resources in the sense that you had less life experience. You were just physically smaller. So it would be much easier for you to feel overwhelmed and powerless in that situation. So what happens is that belief was formed at an earlier point when you had fewer resources. So you felt less knowledgeable, less powerful, less capable, more easily overwhelmed, more afraid, more intimidated. And that belief, then it gets locked into that same state. Okay, so whenever that belief is triggered, it triggers you back into that same state. So you go back to being 5 years old, which is why we behave in the ways that we do, right? I mean, it's like you might be 70 years old, and then you can get triggered and you're acting like you're 5. Why? Because the belief was formed when you were 5. And so you lose all the resourcefulness that you have as a 70-year-old, and you go right back to the resources that you had when you were 5, which is pretty small. So you can help yourself out by just recognizing that, and you say, okay, I formed this belief when I had fewer resources. This belief seemed to in some way serve me then. Whether or not it actually did, it doesn't matter, but it seemed to at that time. It seemed to offer some kind of protection. Do I actually need that now? Is it actually useful now? Whether or not it was useful then, is it actually useful now? And this can help you. It's a very simple way that you can go into more detail with it, but just at a very simple way, you can just use this just to invite yourself to recognize that it was a younger, less resourceful you that formed that belief, and that whatever was true for you at that time is not true now, that you have greater resources now, greater knowledge now, greater experience now that allows you to live life in a new way, that you don't actually need that belief in order to offer you false security. So sometimes it can be helpful to take that step and then choose to release the belief. So that's a simple process that you can use. I think a simple process, relatively simple process that you can use. And again, is it the optimal process? I don't know. But if you get hung up on the optimal process, then you don't take the steps where you are now to start getting results now. And if you just consistently apply these things, I promise you, you will get results. You will see improvements in your life. So that's it for today, for now. So hopefully that's helpful and clear to you. Put it into practice. That's how you get the results. So every day, just to recap, every day, take a moment just to connect with yourself as formless awareness. Just let go of everything and just notice that you are that formless source, that you are that open spaciousness in which everything is happening. You don't have to make a big deal of it. It doesn't have to be dramatic. You don't have to see lights. You don't have to feel like you're floating on cloud nine. Just notice it. Just tap into it. Just for a moment. Second thing is write down what you want in present tense in a positive sense. Read that every day. And it's an ongoing process, so don't get locked into it. If it's not true today, refine it. Right? If yesterday you wanted $1 million and today you realize, well, what you actually want is to feel lovable. Okay, so that's great. That's clearer. That's more true. So refine it, but don't go at the same time. Don't go jumping ship. Right? So like refine it, but don't say today I want $1 million. Actually, tomorrow you say, actually, I want a yacht. It's like, nah, be a little bit, refine it to something deeper, but don't jump around to different things. But yes, it should become more refined and clearer over time. But stay with whatever's true and read that each day. Take a moment just to feel it, imagine it, sense it. Okay, then the third thing is keep a running list of your limiting beliefs that are interfering with you experiencing, manifesting what it is that you actually desire, and then take a few moments each day to consciously dissolve one or more of those beliefs. If you do those things sincerely every day, it does not take you a lot of time. We're only talking about a handful of minutes each day. If you do those things, you will see improvements in your life. If you do it consistently every day for the rest of your life will get better and better and better and better and better and clearer every day. And over time, that really adds up. Of course, if you don't do any of that, then things are not likely to improve, right? If you just say, oh, I'll just watch a different, let me watch a different YouTube video on a different technique for a different thing. Oh, maybe I should go to that retreat. Maybe I should learn this other thing. It's like, okay, that's all interesting. But what can you do consistently day after day, starting right now? Because that's what's going to give you the real results. It's not, and I'm not poo-pooing, the retreats and the whatever. All that stuff might be very useful. It might not, but don't fool yourself into thinking I'm going to do this thing in the future, and then that thing is going to be this explosion that's going to fix everything for me. It doesn't work like that. Rarely, at least, does it work like that. Just do the simple, consistent thing day after day after day that actually works. It's based on a real fundamental understanding of how things are structured. That will give you results, real results that you can have authentic self-confidence. So for those who are watching on YouTube, I'm going to end this recording in a few moments. I'll say a few last words, which are number one, I'm still offering free introductory coaching calls. For those who are interested, you can find out more at joeylott.com/intro. And I'll put a link to this and everything else in the description on YouTube. Second thing is that if you're interested in joining these meetings live, you're welcome to do so. You can get that information by signing up for my newsletter on my website, joeylott.com. Third thing is for those who are interested in a supported process that will help you to create a simple, structured routine in your life that will help you to get these results. You may be interested in the Manifesting Truth program. It is a paid program. You can find out more at joeylott.com/manifesting-truth. Again, there'll be a link in the description below on YouTube. And so that's it for this recording. I'm going to end it now. Blessings to you all. And for those who are here live, stay on for the group coaching.